Howdy folks, it's your friend Fishing with Dom, and today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about smallmouth bass. Now in specific, I'm going to give you a few stories of when and where I've caught smallmouth bass and share with you some of the biggest smallmouth bass in my life. I have a cue card right here in front of me that I've written down, and I'm not going to read off every single one of these to you, but I'm just going to give you a few, and this is going to be the first part of a two-part series of the biggest and the best smallmouth fishing I've ever experienced firsthand. And that goes back to the first time I really became addicted to smallmouth bass fishing was in the summer of 2012. Specifically, it was the second week of July. We were on the Canadian side by the Native American reservation, and we were fishing for smallmouth, just aimlessly drifting, casting jerk baits, casting grubs, whatever you put out there, you were catching smallmouth bass. We would troll body baits, looking for muskie or pike, but we'd end up picking off, 4.5, 5 pound smallmouth bass. And after a few of those fish, we said, okay, that's enough of that. Let's just drift and try to catch them on whatever we throw. And we caught a lot of smallmouth. My good friend Jeff Jones and I did at the time. And I did it in 2012. It was a great time. And then in 2014, I went back, and it was much colder. It was probably 2 months before that. It was definitely May. It was almost too cold to be out there fishing the way we were fishing. But we were catching them on jerk baits, just drifting around aimlessly. It taught me so much about how great a fishery Lake St. Clair is, and every so often in life you get these times where it doesn't matter what color you're using, it doesn't matter what size your lure is, it doesn't matter, nothing matters. As long as the fish can eat it, they're going for it. Plain and simple. It was some of the greatest fishing I've ever experienced firsthand. There's no doubt about that. But then we also caught some of the biggest smallmouth bass of my life out there that day. We caught plenty of fours and a couple of fives. If I were to take my top 5 fish from that day, it would definitely be a bag. I would comfortably say, let's say 21 to 24 pounds. Just 5 big chunky smallmouth. Now it could be 25 for all I remember. There were a lot of big fish out there, but definitely over 20 pounds. We caught a lot of smallmouth just on grubs, jerk baits, spinner baits, whatever you put out there. We were catching fish. I'll never forget growing up and fishing the Canadian side of Lake St. Clair and just unloading the fury on big smallmouth bass out there. It was so much fun. And for a few years, that was the occasion when I caught the biggest smallmouth bass of my life. That is until one spring day in the second week of May. I was fishing the east side of Saginaw Bay, and I caught, to this day, it's still the biggest smallmouth of my life, and it was over 6 pounds. Came in at 22 and an eighth inches. In springtime, it was a football. It was a big boy. If you look at the picture right there, I can't believe I got to catch that. I can't believe that people were taking pictures of me with that fish. It was unbelievable. It was such an experience because we'd been fishing for a few hours and nobody was really catching anything, but my buddy's girlfriend, she caught one that was about 14 or 15 inches on a scatter wrap around some rock structure, and I was beginning to lose it. I thought I thought I wasn't going to catch a fish, and I thought I was going to be outfished by a girl. Now, there's nothing wrong with being outfished by anybody, regardless of their gender or sexual identity, but I didn't want that to happen. So I started thinking logically and breaking down what would be the most effective and efficient way to cover water and touch a fish right now. So I began to start engaging tactics and methods where I could cover a considerable amount of water very, very quickly. And that brought me to using a lipless crankbait, and in specific, that was the silent version of the Rapala Rip and Wrap. I don't know if they make the silent version anymore, but at the time, it had a lot of flash. It had a straight nosedive. It had a very, very wide wobble to it, and I was just casting it out there and just letting it sink, and I'd pump it back to the boat. And one time I reeled down on the slack and just felt this, bite. This fish picked it up, and I socked it to him, and it was just straight rod bend. Big old head shakes, little runs here and there, just something big sticking to the bottom. And once he got close to us before we netted it, I just saw this black orb coming out of the water, and I couldn't recognize what it was. It was just so dark, and the water was really clear, so he's coming out, and I couldn't exactly make out what it was. I'm like, did I snag a carp or something? Is this a catfish of some sort? No, it was over a 6-pound smallmouth that was over 22 inches long. I couldn't believe it. The thing was a freak of nature. Just to this day, it's the biggest smallmouth bass I've ever seen in person. And I ended up catching it. I think that's really, really cool to say. Now, I caught a lot of other big bass that day, too, just like these ones on the jig, and I caught a few on the lipless crankbait. But it gave me a new appreciation for Saginaw Bay, because all the walleye anglers across America know how great of a walleye fishery it is. But not too many people honestly know about the world-class smallmouth bass fishing out there. I honestly believe if they wanted to have a Bassmaster Open event out there, or an Elite Series event, or a Major League Fishing event out there, because that's a thing now, the Saginaw Bay, it would turn some heads, and it would bring in a lot of traffic as far as smallmouth and largemouth bass anglers. I've caught my fair share of largemouth bass out there too, but not nearly as many. The smallmouth bass, they're huge. They're out there, they're feeding on gobies, they're feeding on perch, there's minnows. There's a lot of bait out there, and there's not too much competition amongst other smallmouth bass, but go out there. If you get the chance to fish that side of Lake Huron for anything, go for it. But if you're going out for smallmouth bass, I tell you what, just do it. Listen to me and do it, because it's going to be well worth it. I'm hooked, and it'll always be one of my favorite fisheries for that reason. And it was a year later, in the same bay we were fishing, where my good friend Andy and we caught 100 smallmouth bass between the two of us. Now, one after another, anything and anything we threw at them, we were catching smallies, weightless plastics, tubes, jigs, cranks, spinner baits, topwater baits. It was unbelievable how many fish we were catching. It was constant double headers. It was constant, 3 casts, 3 fish, or so you say. We hammered them. It was unbelievable. You hear about times when it comes to fishing where, oh, you should have been here yesterday. The fish were smacking yesterday. I tell you what, we caught so many of them yesterday. Too bad you weren't there yesterday. But I was there this time. I saw the greatest fishing day of my life out there. Just one smallmouth after another. And there was a good mixed bag. You got your occasional 4.5 pounder, but a lot of them I'd say were probably between 2 and 3 pounds, making it a lot of fun. The smallmouth bass, especially when you're fishing them on medium power bass gear, it's a riot. I had such a great time doing that, and every time I go there, I think, this could happen. This could happen again. I've seen it happen here before, where you put anything out there and there's a smallmouth bass waiting to destroy your worm or destroy your body bait. It was an incredible time that I hope to never forget. Just so many smallmouth bass. It was, I'm not kidding, 100 between the two of us. Andy probably caught 55, I probably caught 45. He always outfishes me a little bit, but we lost count. We hit 95 fish, just kept catching more and more and more, and then we know we hit 100, but we don't know the exact number anymore. So we just say, oh, that's the day we caught 100 fish out there on the Saginaw Bay. And I can't wait to go back and experience that again someday. Maybe if I'm lucky, I'll have children and they'll be able to see how great that fishery is. But the locals know about days like that out there where you're drifting around, you're doing your thing, and you catch a considerable amount of bass, a lot of bass. Definitely days where you catch over 50, over 75, or even 100. It's a real thing. I'm not kidding. 100 smallmouth bass day. You hear about them on Lake St. Clair, but for a body of water that doesn't get the recognition it deserves for the smallmouth bass fishery, count me in. There's a lot of fish out there. They're not that hard to catch in many instances, and there's not too many fishermen out there. So, in my opinion, I think the Saginaw Bay is my favorite smallmouth bass fishery. It's a great walleye fishery too, but in the state of Michigan, I would put it as the best smallmouth bass fishery as far as quality over quantity. Now, there's a lot of mixed debate on Lake St. Clair and how it may or may not be on a decline as far as a healthy smallmouth bass population. That's just a lot of that speculation and opinion. I was just putting it out there. But the Saginaw Bay over the past 6 years has been consistently good to me, where we've caught quality fish certain times of the year, and other times of the year we caught a ridiculous amount of smallmouth bass, 100. Unbelievable. You're just running out of hooks. You're running out of everything else after so many fish. We had to run up to the gas station, go buy a pack of whatever Senko worms or jigs and grubs they had going on, and we'd continue to catch more fish out there. I loved it. I hope other people get to experience how magical that was for me when I was younger. But I'm just going to leave you with those 3 stories about some of the best smallmouth bass fishing I've ever experienced. Lake St. Clair in 2012, and the Saginaw Bay Big Fish of 2014, and the 100 Smallmouth Day of 2015. It was quite the experience, and I will never forget any of those trips. And I'll never forget any of the other trips I have in this cue card. Now, if you want to hear more fishing stories, let me know. If you like the format for these videos, please drop a comment below or holler at me on my social media handles, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, @FishingWithDom. I'd really like to hear it. This is something totally new to me. I don't have the opportunity to go home as much as I used to film in the studio, so I decided, hey, I'm at college, maybe I could film a desktop video where, I could just talk stories, put pictures up, and you'll be able to get the idea, sort of like a news report, so you know what I'm talking about, what I experienced, all that fun stuff. And you get to check out my college dorm room. It's pretty cool pad, if I may say so. This is where all the debauchery takes place. All the studying, all the soda, all the ramen noodles you can imagine. It goes down here. But if you have any story ideas, if you have any video ideas or suggestions, please let me know in the comments below, and I would really appreciate it. But until next time, I'm Fishing with Dom. I hope you have a great day. I hope you enjoy your holiday season. You be sure to take it easy. Bye-bye.